Prime Minister about the appointment of the CFO for NVGEBE. We have more on the Committee of Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations for February 2026. Supreme Court rejects Trump's final appeal. Arrest warrant issued within 48 hours. Remains of 32 Cuban soldiers returned to Havana after U.S. raid on Venezuela. From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for January 15th, 2026. The appointment of the CFO of the NVGEBE. That process is also being finalized. At this particular moment, the candidate was elected and presented to the shareholders through the binding nomination procedure. The next step for us to move forward is the appointment of the COO, which has just been realized. We're going to move forward, and I will provide some information regarding the appointment of board members. Prime Minister Dr. Luc Mercelina is speaking at the COM press briefing on Wednesday.
And I stayed by informing that I had some information also concerning the appointment of the CFO of GEBE. That process is also being finalized at this particular moment. The candidate was duly selected and presented to the shareholders through the binding nomination procedure. So this is the next step now for us to move forward, is the appointment of the COO has just been realized. We're going to move forward, and I will give some information on that. Also is the appointment of board members for the GEBE, and also after that we will proceed also with finalizing the appointment of the CFO of GEBE. With respect to the Supervisory Board of Directors of GEBE, the board currently consists of 3 members, with a term of one of the members nearing its expiration. Pursuant to the Article of Incorporation, the Supervisory Board of Directors must at all times be composed of a minimum of 3 members. The shareholders has identified and screened 4 candidates for appointment to the Supervisory Board of Directors. A draft resolution concerning their appointment will be circulated in the coming week for the purpose of obtaining an advisory vote from the existing 3 Supervisory Board members and from the temporary manager that we have at this particular moment. It's in the Articles of Incorporation. Once you have the 3 members that you appointed, actually nominated to be appointed, in the phase of finalizing the appointment, the Articles of Incorporation gives you the guidelines for you to request the advisory board vote, the advisory vote of the Supervisory Board of that company, and also from the managerial board of the company. So we are now in the phase. It has been approved already by the Corporate Governance Council. We got a positive advice from the Corporate Governance Council, and now the last step is, of course, to request the advisory board vote from the managerial board and the supervisory board. And once we have those, then the final steps are there to just nominate appoint the new 3 board members that I just mentioned. So then, once we get the advisory vote from the 2, the managerial board and supervisory board, we will move forward with appointment of the new supervisory board members that I just mentioned.
You had mentioned that for Telem you have 3 new board members.
Yes.
Can you let us know who those board members are? And regarding GB, you've mentioned the COO and CFO. What is the status regarding the CEO?
To start with your first question concerning the members that have been appointed as members of the Supervisory Board of the Telem, there are 3 members One of them is Mrs. Natasha van den Berg. The next one is mevrouw Jennifer Mohamed Yunus. And the third one is Mrs. Maria Gonçalves. These are the new appointed members of the Telem from the telecommunication company. The second question you had was
Regarding the CEO of GB, you didn't mention what the status is of that.
yes. I'm going to just I thought about it because I was expecting this question to come, and I think we are now in the phase of appointing the C-suite level of that company, and we started with the CEO. We have, the next one will be the finalizing the members of the supervisory board, and then we will finalize the appointment of the CFO. It is important, and I think this is the best way for me to give it, for me to make sure that I give you the correct answer. It is important to emphasize that pursuant to articles of incorporation of NVGB, the appointment of C-level is initiated through a binding nomination procedure whereby the supervisory board of directors is required to submit 2 binding nominees per C-level position of the shareholder. In the present case, the supervisory board of directors submitted binding nominations as follows. They presented 2 candidates for the position of the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, and they proposed actually instead of 2 that is required if you follow the articles of incorporation, they presented only 1 candidate for the position of CFO and also 1 candidate for the position of COO. As it's known, the locally based and preferred CEO candidate passed, unfortunately, he passed away. So we had Mr. Troy Washington, the late Mr. Troy Washington was actually the preferred candidate to occupy the position of CEO. Immediately following his passing, the supervisory board of directors proceeded to appoint a temporary manager because Mr. Troy Washington was not the CEO of the company. It was the intention to appoint him as CEO following the selection procedure that took place, but unfortunately, unexpectedly, he passed away, and then the supervisory board of directors proceeded with the appointment of a temporary manager, being actually the second binding nominee previously submitted by the board for the CEO position. So the first one was Mrs. Troy Washington, and the second one is the temporary manager that we have at this particular moment that until now is not the CEO of the company, but the temporary manager. Subsequently, the temporary manager engaged the CFO nominee as a consultant to the company. So what transpired is we had only a temporary manager, and the temporary manager at that moment then contracted the CFO that is going to be nominated soon, in the meantime, as a financial consultant to the company to move forward with the company. This is going on since mid last year that we have a temporary manager, and we have thus a financial manager actually in the construction of a consultancy base for the company.
We have more on the Committee of Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations for February 2026.
You know, as I want to say newcomer because I'm approaching the senior barrier of 10 years in this political arena. It is quite unfortunate that for so many years we continue to have the same discussions. And now I think as a country we need to decide what it is we really want. Because on one end we could talk about inclusion and talk about what we would want to see for ourselves, but if you have persons in the decision-making positions that is acting contrary to that, I don't think that we can really make it much further than we are. As a matter of fact, we might be going backwards. With that being said, I remember I think it was during the September IPCO, we had a discussion as to forming a sort of a tripartite committee where we would discuss the advice in terms of the dispute regulation. We had to form with Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. We are representatives. I haven't seen, I don't know if you have any update for me on that regard. I don't know if that was in the coming points that you have. I would like to get an update on that from you if possible. Secondly, we are saying that we want more autonomy, more zeggenschap in terms of how we want to move forward, but then you have the government in terms of, instead of being creative in ways to generate revenue, every minute knocking on the door of the Netherlands for support in every shape, form, and fashion. I think that that is counterproductive, because I think that is not only taking away from our own creativity to generate revenue, but is also digging us deeper in a hole in terms of dependence. So for me, I look forward to the discussion with the Prime Minister and the relevant ministers when that time comes in terms of how we're going to move forward. But I'm a little less hopeful, seeing the reality is we are here having one discussion and they're over there having another discussion. We've seen where in the past, ministers have signed to all kinds of different agreements and commitments. Later down the line, we find out this was the case, that was the case. I would like to know through this committee, Madam Chair, if we can get an overview of all agreements that were signed, all onderlinge regelingen that were signed within the last year and a half. I know about those that were signed before, but I think it's very important because we see where, most recently when the Prime Minister was in the Netherlands, asking for assistance with justice, which of course is definitely needed, but then at the same time signing so much different agreements. I asked the Prime Minister unofficially, officially, what are we giving up when it comes to this co-ownership discussion that you're having? Because I'm all for having better schools here in St. Martin and ways and means that they can work together with those in the Netherlands. But what are you offering? Because I lived in the Netherlands for about 7 years, and I know that there's never nothing for nothing. So through you, Madam Chair, to you, Madam Chair, I would like to know if through this committee we can get an overview of all agreements that were signed with the Netherlands that St. Martin government is committing themselves to, so that we can know what's going on as Parliament.
With respect to the tax reform on St. Martin and the efforts that are being made in the context of the country package, because that's where a lot of the reform activities are being initiated, and I just want to make one comment here, and that is that you can't build something new on a shaky foundation. And it is a fact that our tax system / tax administration is shaky. It has been so for years, for decades. Several attempts to change the system have been made over the years. And again, we see attempts being made here in Parliament. We have a proposal that is considered part of tax reform, and that is to eliminate / annul some existing tax laws. However, I don't see this discussion, I cannot see this discussion separate from the overall discussions on tax reform. To me, it can't work like that, and I think we need to pull the requests that are there to have the minister give us an update on tax reform. This minister now, I think that that is what this committee should proceed with post haste, and because this is only a part of the matter of tax reform and how we deal, especially with bilateral agreements on taxes. But it is part of your tax system, and that's why you're hearing the kind of questions that have come up in the second chamber on this law.
During Tuesday's meeting of the Committee of Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations, MP Egbert J. Doran raised a central question facing St. Martin today. Can the country realistically speak about autonomy while remaining structurally dependent on external support? According to MP Doran, discussions about kingdom relations have repeated themselves for years, often focusing on autonomy, inclusion, and a stronger voice within the kingdom. Yet, he noted, those discussions lose meaning when actions taken at the executive level do not reflect the same objectives. We talk about having more control over our future, Doran said, but when decisions consistently move us toward deeper dependence, we are not moving forward. We are standing still, or worse. A key part of Doran's intervention focused on the country's continued reliance on the Netherlands for assistance across multiple sectors. While he acknowledged that cooperation is necessary, especially in areas such as justice and governance, he stressed that long-term autonomy is impossible without a strong local revenue base. If Sint Maarten does not actively build its own revenue streams, Doran cautioned, then no amount of political language about autonomy will change our reality. This position, he emphasized, is not new. Last year, Doran formally requested a Finance Committee meeting focused specifically on revenue generation. That meeting has yet to be convened. More recently, together with his faction, he requested an urgent joint meeting with the Ministers of Finance to discuss concrete revenue opportunities for Sint Maarten. That meeting was scheduled, but ultimately cancelled at the last minute. For Doran, these delays highlight a deeper issue. While there is no shortage of talk about reform, there has been limited follow-through on discussions that directly address the country's financial independence. Autonomy cannot exist without revenue, he stated. If we are serious about reducing dependence, then revenue generation cannot remain a postponed conversation. In addition to revenue generation, Doran raised concerns about transparency in kingdom-level agreements. He questioned the number of mutual agreements signed in recent months within the Ministries of Justice, Finance, General Affairs, and the Netherlands. According to Doran, Parliament often learns of these commitments only after they are already in effect. Parliament must know what is being agreed to on behalf of the country, he said. What obligations are being taken on, and what is Sint Maarten committing to in return? That information should not come after the fact.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SZV, yeah, your social and health insurances.
The Hague. Parliamentary questions submitted by Dutch MP Peter van Duvenvoorde underscore a growing recognition in The Hague of Curaçao's strategic importance within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, particularly in the context of energy storage and logistics. In his written questions to the Dutch cabinet, Van Duvenvoorde refers to reports that Venezuelan crude oil is being temporarily stored on Curaçao. He asks whether the government sees this as a sign that the island is once again emerging as a critical hub in Caribbean energy beyond the immediate situation. The MP raises broader questions about how Curaçao fits into the kingdom's long-term economic and strategic planning. He wants to know whether the island's oil terminals, port facilities, and geographic location are being viewed as assets that can be structurally integrated into a kingdom-wide vision on energy and logistics. Van Duivenvoorde also asks whether the Dutch government is in active dialogue with Curaçao's authorities about strengthening cooperation in this area. His questions suggest that Curaçao's role should not be treated as incidental, but as part of a deliberate strategy comparable to the Netherlands' own function as an energy and logistics gateway in Europe. The MP further emphasizes that developments on Curaçao could contribute to employment, economic growth, and knowledge development on the island, provided they are embedded in a framework that ensures cooperation and shared benefits within the kingdom. The cabinet has yet to respond. Once answers are published, they are expected to clarify how The Hague envisions Curaçao's strategic role amid shifting geopolitical dynamics in the Caribbean and increased international interest in Venezuelan oil. Anguilla, Saba, and Statia, St. Eustatius, will be the official host destinations of the Meet the Neighbors program in the 18th St. Martin Annual Regional Trade Show, SMART. This was announced today by the St. Martin Hospitality and Trade Association, SHTA, in conjunction with organizing committee members Office du Tourisme, ODT, St. Martin Tourism Bureau, STB, and the Club du Tourisme, CDT. SMART 2026 will take place from June 22-26 and will be the third edition in its revised, expanded format. As a new element, Meet the Neighbors was added to the 25-year-old trade show in 2024 and 2025 to allow foreign tour operators and travel agents to explore a unique feature of destinations in the northeastern Caribbean, their proximity to one another. Operators, airlines, and agents are cordially invited to enjoy the final Friday of the SMART event on a surrounding island, leading to additional scope and attraction factor of the event. In other words, visits to spokes to which the binational St. Martin destination serves as a hub are often combined for island-hopping experiences. At 10 a.m. this morning, the final door closed. For months, you have watched the legal maneuvering, the appeals, and the deliberate efforts to slow the wheels of justice. It was frustrating, I know. But today, the Supreme Court of the U.S. issued a definitive order. They did not just rule, they terminated the stay. This is what we call the issuance of mandate. It is the formal notification that the work of the higher court is done and jurisdiction has returned to the lower court, said Jack Smith.
At 10 a.m. this morning, the final door closed. For months, you have watched the legal maneuvering, the appeals, and the deliberate efforts to slow the wheels of justice. It was frustrating, I know. But today, the Supreme Court of the U.S. issued a definitive order. They did not just rule, they terminated the stay. This is what we call the issuance of mandate. It is the formal notification that the work of the higher court is done and jurisdiction has returned to the lower court. This is not a theory, it is a court mandate. It is the legal equivalent of a green light for the special counsel and the district court to move forward without further interference. I have built cases for 30 years, and I can tell you that this is the moment every prosecutor waits for. It is the moment the law is finally permitted to take its course. Let me walk you through exactly what this document says, because there is a specific 48-hour procedural window that has just been triggered. Understand what actually happened in that courtroom today. The clock is ticking. The countdown is controlled by the law. Timeline: June, August, and now today. To understand the gravity of this morning's rejection, you have to look at the pattern. In June, the defense filed a motion claiming absolute immunity. It was a theory that would place a president entirely beyond the reach of the law. The district court said no. In August, they went to the appeals court with the same argument. They were essentially asking for a get-out-of-jail-free card for official acts. Again, the answer was no. This third attempt, the final appeal to the Supreme Court, was the last line of defense. They were not just seeking a ruling, they were seeking delay. That is not my opinion. That is what the evidence shows. Every filing was a strategic attempt to push the trial date past the election. They wanted to ensure a jury of American citizens never heard the facts. But prosecutors look for patterns, and this pattern shows a clear intent to bypass accountability. That is not a coincidence. That is a strategy that has failed. The court transcript is public record. If you read the filings, you see a defense team running out of road. They argued that a president must be impeached before he can be prosecuted. That is a claim with zero basis in the Constitution. Today, the highest court in the land effectively ended that fiction. Let us look at the facts and not the headlines. The rejections were unanimous. The logic was clinical. And now that the Supreme Court has said no for the final time, the case moves from the marble halls of the High Court back to the District Court where the warrant originates.
Now for the weather forecast, Friday morning through midday. Fair to partly cloudy and occasionally breezy. There is a low chance of showers. Surface winds. Today through Friday midday, east-northeast to southeasterly, with a gentle to moderate breeze at 8 to 15 km/h. State of the sea. Slight to moderate waves, swells 2 to 5 feet. Outlook through Saturday midday, fair to partly cloudy and occasionally breezy, with scattered showers overnight. And now your 3-day forecast.
Your social and health insurances. Your social and health insurances.
Are you SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
Donald Trump has said he has been told the killing in Iran has stopped, but the US president has not ruled out military action against the country over its violent crackdown on anti-government protesters. Report file by BBC News.
The funeral of a teenage protester in the west of Iran, here a life celebrated. More than 2,400 anti-government demonstrators have been killed in a crackdown by the authorities, according to a US-based rights group, leaving President Trump weighing up whether to take military action against the regime. But just as signals were multiplying an attack might be imminent, a more conciliatory tone.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that a good authority. We'll find out about it.
Does this mean military action is now off the table against Iran?
And we're going to watch it and see what the process is.
Iran had closed its airspace, fearing an attack. The US and UK have pulled some military personnel from this base in Qatar in order to ensure their safety. The Foreign Office has updated its travel advice for several destinations popular with British tourists, including Turkey, Egypt and Cyprus, due to what it calls a heightened risk of regional tension. And there have been fears for the life of Irfan Soltani, the owner of a clothes shop, who's become the face of the protests against the Iranian government. His family says he's been sentenced to death, but that the execution has been suspended. The judiciary says he hasn't been given the death penalty. In an interview with Fox News, Iran's foreign minister insisted there were no plans for hangings, suggesting Tehran may be heeding President Trump's warning.
My message is, between war and diplomacy is a better way, although we don't have any positive experience from the United States.
Supporters of the Iranian regime have been on the streets for a mass funeral, the coffins carrying members of the security forces and others linked to the government killed in the last few days of bloodshed.
We could be on the precipice of history where an evil regime falls, or we could see them continue to kill their way through survival, killing their own people. So the president is monitoring the situation.
After the protest, the world is still waiting and watching. Is President Trump trying to buy more time to move additional military assets into the region? Is he having second thoughts? Or is he just trying to preserve the element of surprise? Simon Jones, BBC News.
The remains of 32 Cuban soldiers killed in the U.S. military operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro have arrived in Havana with full honors. A solemn military procession and public tributes marked the moment as Cuba mourns its fallen and tensions with Washington escalate. Report by DRM News.
En honor y homenaje póstumo a los combatientes cubanos caídos en el cumplimiento del deber en la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, pelotón, 3 salvas, corneta, toque silencio.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.